There's a forest at the edge of a town that no map has ever named. Not because cartographers forgot it, not because the land was overlooked or the surveys were incomplete, but because every person who has ever tried to draw it has found, by morning, that the lines they made the night before no longer match what stands there. The forest moves, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, quietly, the way a tide moves, a little further in, a little further back. The tree lines shifting by feet or yards or sometimes by entire acres between dusk and dawn, as if the trees themselves are restless, as if they are searching for something just beyond their current reach. The locals call it the Thornwood. They do not go inside it. They have not gone inside it for a very long time. The town of Ashvale sits roughly 12 kilometers from the Thornwood's nearest edge, and if you were to ask any of its 3,000 residents about the forest, you would receive one of two responses. The older ones would go quiet and change the subject. The younger ones would tell you the stories, because of course there are stories. There are always stories, with the particular energy of people who have heard something so many times it has stopped feeling dangerous and started feeling exciting. A forest that rearranges itself, paths that appear and then disappear, trees that were not there an hour ago, standing now as if they have always stood there, massive and ancient and utterly unbothered. People who went in and did not come out? Not many. Enough. It was Declan who first said out loud what the others were all quietly thinking. He said it on a Friday night in late September, sitting on the tailgate of his truck in the parking lot of a gas station on the edge of Ashvale, with a gas station coffee going cold in his hand, and the distant black tree line of the Thornwood just barely visible on the horizon. "We should go in," he said. There were 4 of them. Declan, 22, broad-shouldered, with the specific confidence of someone who has never yet encountered a consequence he couldn't walk away from. Mara, 20, the one who always had a plan and a backup plan and a backup to the backup plan, and who would later admit, in the safety of afterward, that she had known this was a terrible idea from the first second and had agreed anyway, because she always agreed with Declan because Declan made everything sound reasonable until it wasn't. Theo, 21, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who reads the terms and conditions, who had his phone charged to 100% and had downloaded offline maps of the surrounding area just in case, though no offline map would turn out to be any use whatsoever. And Jessie, 20, Mara's younger sister, who had only come along because Mara had come along, and who had spent most of the evening leaning against the side of the truck, taking photographs of the sky. "We should absolutely not go in," Theo said. "People say you can't find your way out," Jessie said, looking at the tree line. "People say a lot of things," Declan said. "People say not to touch a hot stove," Mara said. "And they're correct about that." Declan looked at all 3 of them. He smiled the way he always smiled, that easy, unhurried smile that made everything seem manageable. "We go in, we walk around for an hour, we come back out. We stay together, we don't split up, we mark our path. It's a forest. It has trees in it. We'll be fine." Theo looked at his phone. It's 11 at night. Forests are more interesting at night. There was a silence. The gas station sign hummed overhead. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called once and went quiet. "1 hour," Mara said. "We mark every tree. We stay together. 1 hour, and we leave." 1 hour, Declan agreed. Jessie lowered her camera from the sky and looked at the tree line. Something in her expression was harder to read than the others. Not excitement. Not quite fear. Something older and quieter than either. "Okay," she said. The drive to the Thornwood took 20 minutes on a road that technically did not go there. They left the truck on the shoulder of a farm road and walked the last kilometer across a field of dry September grass, their flashlight beams cutting thin white lines through the dark. Up close, the Thornwood was different from what any of them had imagined. They had expected something gnarled and ominous, the kind of dark fairy tale forest that signals its nature from a distance. Twisted branches, dead canopy, the theatrical unpleasantness of somewhere you're not supposed to go. Instead, it was beautiful. The trees were enormous, old growth, oak and ash and something else, something none of them could name, with bark so dark it was nearly black and canopy so dense that when they stepped through the tree line, the sky above them vanished entirely, replaced by a ceiling of interlocked branches through which Here and there, a single star showed through like a needle hole in black cloth. The air inside was different. Cooler. Heavier. It had a smell to it. Green and deep and faintly sweet. The way old wood smells when it's been rained on. Okay, Theo said softly, looking up. I see why people come here. Declan pulled out a penknife and cut a small notch in the bark of the nearest tree. Mark. Every 10 meters. We go straight in, we go straight out. Easy. They walked. For the first 15 minutes, everything was fine. The forest was quiet in the specific way of places that contain a great deal of life that is choosing, for the moment, not to make any noise. They walked in a loose group, flashlights moving across roots and fallen branches and the occasional shallow depression where something had burrowed into the soil. Jesse took photographs. Theo kept checking his compass. Mara counted paces. Then Theo stopped. That's the third time I've seen that tree, he said. Declan turned around. What? That tree. Theo pointed his flashlight at a large oak about 4 meters to their left, distinctive because of a split high up in its trunk, like a fork, both branches growing outward at near identical angles. I noticed it when we came in. Then I saw it again about 5 minutes ago. Now it's here. Declan shone his light on it. It's probably just a similar tree. I have a photograph, Jessie said quietly. Everyone looked at her. She held up her camera and played back 3 images on the small screen. The same tree, in 3 different positions relative to where they were standing. The fork identical in every image, right down to a pattern of pale lichen on the left branch. No one said anything for a moment. The trees are moving, Mara said. Not as a question. Trees don't move, Declan said. This forest rearranges itself overnight, Theo said, and his voice had a new quality in it that hadn't been there before. That is the entire thing. That is the whole story about this place. The trees move. We knew this before we came in. I thought that was a metaphor, Declan said. It is not a metaphor, Theo said. They turned around, or they tried to turn around. Declan's notched tree, the one he had marked at the entrance, was gone. Not vanished. Simply not where it should have been. Not visible in any direction from where they were standing. They backtracked, following Mara's pace count, and found the next notched tree, and then the next. But by the time they reached what should have been the 4th marker, there was no 4th marker. Only trees, unnotched, unrecognizable, massive and dark, and completely silent. Leo's compass was spinning, not drifting, spinning, continuously in a slow and deliberate rotation, as if whatever magnetic principle it operated on had simply stopped applying here. Okay, Mara said. She sat down on a fallen log and opened her phone. No signal. They'd expected that. But the offline map loaded, and she oriented it by hand, using the stars visible through the narrow gaps in the canopy to try to establish direction. North was that way. Probably. The field where they'd left the truck was. She turned the map, held it up, roughly 2 kilometers in that direction. She stood up. This way, she said. We walk fast. We stay together. We don't stop. They walked fast. They stayed together. They did not stop. 20 minutes later they were standing in a clearing that none of them had ever seen before. It was perfectly circular, perhaps 40 meters across. The grass inside it was a different color than the rest of the forest floor. Paler, almost silver in the moonlight. That fell here, unobstructed through a gap in the canopy directly above. In the center of the clearing stood a single tree, different from all the others. Taller, older, and completely bare of leaves, despite the season. Its branches reaching upward and outward in a shape that, seen from below, looked unsettlingly like outstretched arms. Around the base of the tree, carved into the roots, were symbols that none of them could read. Not letters in any alphabet any of them recognized. Not numbers. Something older than both. Jessie raised her camera, then lowered it, then raised it again. I don't think we should photograph this, she said. We're lost, Declan said. For the first time, all night, the easy confidence in his voice had been replaced by something careful and controlled. The particular tone of someone managing themselves. We need to think clearly. We are in a forest. Forests have edges. All we have to do is walk in a straight line, and we will eventually reach an edge. We have been walking in a straight line, Theo said. We'll walk in a different straight line. Declan. Mara turned to look at him. I need you to hear me. We are actually lost. This is not an adventure anymore. We need to make a real decision. He met her eyes. And the thing that happened in that moment, the thing that perhaps mattered more than any of the navigational calculations, or the compass readings, or the offline maps, was that Declan nodded. He stopped being the person who made everything sound manageable. He became, instead, someone listening. What do we do? He said. It was Jessie who answered. She had been quiet for the last 10 minutes, standing at the edge of the clearing, looking not at the strange bear tree but at the tree line around it. Now she spoke without turning around. The trees move, she said, but they move for a reason. They're not random. Look at the gaps. The others looked. Between the trunks, the darkness was not uniform. In some directions, the spaces between trees were wide. In others, they were narrow, barely passable. And in one direction, to the northeast, if Mara's star navigation was right, the spaces between trunks were wider than anywhere else. Like a corridor, like something that had been left open. The forest moves to redirect you, Jessie said. The markers failed because the trees moved around them. The compass failed because, I don't know why the compass failed, but the gaps. If the forest wanted us completely lost, there would be no gaps. There would be nothing. But there are gaps. And there's one gap that is bigger than the others. That could lead anywhere, Theo said. It could, Jessie agreed. Or it could be the way out. Either way. Staying in this clearing next to whatever this is. She gestured at the carved roots without looking at them. Seems worse. No one argued. They moved through the gap. The corridor between the trees was narrow enough that they had to go single file. Jessie first, then Mara, then Declan, then Theo at the rear, looking back over his shoulder every few steps. So the trees on either side of them were close enough that if they reached out both arms they could touch bark on both sides. And more than once Theo was almost certain, almost entirely certain, that the trees behind him had shifted a fraction of a meter closer together after he passed, like a door closing quietly behind someone who didn't notice. He did not mention this to the others. The corridor went on for what felt like a very long time, and was probably, by any objective measure, only about 4 minutes. And then the tree density began to change. The gaps widened. The canopy thinned. Moonlight fell in larger and larger patches on the ground ahead of them, and the air, which had felt thick and close for the last hour, began to lighten, to lose that heavy green sweetness, to become ordinary cool night air. The tree line appeared 30 meters ahead, open field beyond it, silver-gray September grass, a road in the distance, and at the end of that road, barely visible, the familiar silhouette of Declan's truck, exactly where they had left it. The farm road shoulder exactly as they had found it, as if nothing had happened at all, and the whole world beyond the forest had simply been waiting, patiently and without event, for them to come back out. They walked out of the forest. They stood in the field. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Theo sat down heavily in the grass, tilted his head back, and took a very long, very slow breath of uncomplicated outside air. I want to go home, he said. Yes, said Mara. Agreed, said Declan. Jessie looked back at the tree line once. Just once. The thornwood stood there exactly as it had when they'd arrived. Enormous, dark, beautiful, entirely silent. If it was aware of them, it gave no sign. If it was glad they were gone, or indifferent, or still watching, there was no way to tell. She turned away and followed the others to the truck. They drove back to Ashvale without talking much. At some point Mara fell asleep against the window. Theo stared at his phone, which had found signal again the moment they crossed back into range, and scrolled through the offline map he'd been using, cross-referencing it against satellite imagery that, he noticed, showed the Thornwoods tree line in a subtly different position from where it had actually stood tonight. He did not find this surprising. He found it deeply, thoroughly unsettling, which was its own kind of information. Declan drove. He kept his eyes on the road and both hands on the wheel, which was not his usual style, and he did not say anything for a long time. Then, just as the lights of Ashvale appeared ahead, he said, quietly enough that only Jesse, sitting next to him, could hear. "You saved us back there. The gaps. That was the right call." Jessie looked out the passenger window. "I don't think it wanted us," she said. Declan glanced at her. "What?" "The forest. I don't think it wanted us. I think it wanted something else. And we were just in the way." She paused. "The corridor was already there. We didn't find it. It let us see it." Declan was quiet for a moment. "That's either the most reassuring thing you've ever said, or the most terrifying." "I know," said Jessie. She watched the lights of the town grow brighter as they drove toward them, and she did not look back at the forest again. And she did not take any more photographs that night. And when she got home, she charged her camera and plugged in her phone and lay in the dark for a long time before sleeping, thinking about corridors and gaps, and the difference between a place that can't let you out and a place that simply hasn't decided to yet. The Thornwood still stands at the edge of a town that no map has ever named. The tree line shifts, as it always has between dusk and dawn. The older residents of Ashvale still go quiet when you ask about it. The younger ones still tell the stories. 4 of them now. Tell the stories a little differently than the others. Not louder. Not with more drama or more bravado. But with a specific quality that the others don't quite have. A pause. A careful choice of words. A slight glance toward the horizon when the subject comes up. As if checking, out of old habit, that the tree line is where it should be. It always is, until it isn't. And somewhere inside the Thornwood, in a clearing that is circular and still and lit by moonlight, falling through a gap that was not there yesterday, a bare tree raises its arms toward the sky, and waits, for whatever it is still looking for. The end.